In the United States, there's a huge election going on right now in New York, as well as several other states, but New York is really the focal point of what's going on right now. You have a three-way election with Zohran Mamdani running as the Democrat, Curtis Sliwa running as the Republican, and Andrew Cuomo running as the Independent. If you're like me, you've probably heard of this election, but don't live in New York and can't place a ballot. But that hasn't stopped the media from painting every single Gen Z member as a jihadist, socialist, which just led me to think, why do we keep getting blamed for everything that goes on in America? Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or ghost out. If you have been watching TV, looking on posts online, everybody is blaming the youth for all the socialist change happening in New York right now. But when you really think about it, what does Gen Z control in New York or any other state? We're the ones that are most priced out of owning homes. Most of the positions getting replaced with AI are the positions that were promised to us. And when you take the average age of people in the government currently, they could be our great grandparents. With all this in mind, how are the youngest voters in America getting blamed for the most radical change to happen in New York since forever? Well, that's simple. It's because the people in charge don't want to take ownership for anything they've done. I've seen so many people come out of the woodworks to protest Zohran being mayor of New York, and while I have not looked into many of this guy's policies, all I know is that he's a socialist that wants to offer free childcare and free buses and some other free stuff like grocery stores. You would think that all of Gen Z came together and created this one politician, but this is just a lazy excuse for people who have been in the government to ignore the problems that are plaguing people my age. Instead of addressing why everything is so unaffordable in New York or in America in general, they have found their latest scapegoat, and they don't even attack his policies. This is the same thing that people get tired of in the American political cycle, is we don't actually know what people are running on because they focus so much on the character of the person, and it's crazy that they'll do that because they'll try to talk down the character of a Zohran while talking up a Cuomo. The same Andrew Cuomo that's guilty for getting a bunch of people killed during COVID, the same one that got accused by 13 different women of inappropriate acts, and the same one that basically drove the city into the position that it's in now. And the people saying to vote for Cuomo have no real reason why you should even do it. Trump has come out taking a stance against Zohran, calling him a communist, and people are just acting like Sliwa is not even running in the race.
The driver at the same time crashes me into parked cars. I smash me like sardines, nut to butt. They pump that final bullet in the back, push me out, and figure I'm dead on arrival and I'm sucking concrete.
It's so crazy how far they'll go just to undermine the American voter's choice. Because at the end of the day, shouldn't this be a New Yorker's race? I don't live in New York, and I frankly don't care about this race. I think I commented this on a video last time when someone brought up Zohran in my comments. I simply said if he wins, then that will be New York's choice. And if he does well, more states will adopt his stance. If he does bad, then people will just laugh and point as they are doing now. But this need to have every single person come out of the woodworks and support Cuomo is crazy. It doesn't matter what you stand on. It's simply just who you are. And while you cannot like Zohran, he has no major PAC funding, just like Sliwa. But Cuomo is the politician of the billionaires. And I think the same playbook we're seeing with Cuomo, we're going to see again on both sides. With the Republican Party having somewhat of a civil war right now, it's not too hard to imagine that if in the near future they run a candidate that aligns more with a Tucker Carlson's view rather than an AIPAC view of the Republican Party, then the other side will heavily protest against that candidate. And that's regardless if he wins the primary or gets most of the support from the people. The constant taking advantage of the American voter is such a sad thing to see. Instead of looking at the reasons people might vote for Mamdani, people just call him a communist and ignore any of the problems he's trying to highlight. I'm not saying that enacting some of the socialist policies he's had would benefit New York in a positive or negative way. I'm not smart enough to know that, but every time I've heard them talk down on a Zohran in support of a Cuomo, I've never heard them bring up Cuomo's policy ideas. And that's because he's already been governor and people didn't like him. So now they're trying to rewrite history and tell you that, well, governor, he wasn't that good, but a mayor, oh, he's going to save the city as a mayor. And he's not even really promising to save the city. He's just promising not to be a Zohran. How far can that go? People's paychecks are getting thinner, especially in New York, as you hear of people making hundreds of thousands of dollars and still seeing less than they need to survive happily. How far can being anti-socialist go for you? To me, the most common sense question if you don't want a Mamdani to win would be a sliwa. This man rightfully won his party's primary and has been pro-New York since he's been alive. If you don't know this guy's story, he literally started an organization of public helpers to keep people safe in New York, getting on the subway to protect others when he really had no business even doing that. Coupled with his weird but exciting energy and enthusiasm for the future of New York,
I try to avoid yellow cabs. As you know, I was shot in the back of a yellow cab in 1992 by the Gottis and Gambinos.
I don't understand why people decide to get on the bandwagon of a Cuomo and not this guy. But again, it's not about actually choosing what's best for the city. It's simply making sure that the PACs can control the city that they've always controlled. New York has had a long track record of bad governors, mayors, and politicians overall. But most of the politicians in that state are funded by outside sources, either big tech or some sort of PAC that control all their choices. And the way that this whole election is going down, it's so obvious to see. They beg you to come out and vote. They tell you to stand in the line and make sure your voice is heard. But every day leading up to the final days of the race, they let you know that you make terrible choices and that you really aren't smart enough to vote for yourself. This backwards messaging and grandstanding, acting like they know better than the voters, is the reason that the Democratic Party is so disliked at the moment. I've addressed my political stance, and one of the reasons that I am not a Democrat is because they don't understand the people who are voting for them. If there's any voters left, I think the reason that Mamdani is doing as well as he is because he's willing to actually express new ideas. When you look at the Republicans or the Democrats, it literally looks like the same exact team. None of them really want to change the status quo too much. No one has an idea for young people on how to afford homes or literally afford a sandwich. And most of them are old enough, as I said, to be our great grandparents. They have no skin in the game to make our lives better. In reality, it would benefit them to keep everything the way it is until they can cash out on their retirement funds. And that means even at our expense. The New York race shows me that if you're not getting them to be loud, then you're probably not doing anything that's against the system. And you would think they get it by now. Trump in 2016, everybody saying that, oh, there's no way he could win. You'd have to be crazy to elect a person like this. Every news company making an article down talking him and saying that he had no chance in this race just for him to use all that negative publicity into more attention for him and his cause. I'm not saying Mamdani can become a president, but if you want to keep someone down in an election, the worst thing you could do is give them this much publicity and put them up against a candidate like Cuomo. This guy literally said that $2,300 rent is for poor people. This is the ideology that makes people in New York want to just flip the system on its head. And this is the feeling that's sweeping across the nation. Do I want 1 million Zorons to spread around the nation and have socialist policy across America? I don't know. I don't think that's really a great idea given our deficit, and I don't think it could work in every single state. We just don't have the funding in every state to do something like that. But if voters feel that disenfranchised and unheard that they feel the need to rebel via their vote, then that is exactly what the system was made for. The last thing you want to do is go against what the people want. But it's okay when we act like sheeps and walk ourselves into the slaughter, but when we actually stand up and vote with our minds for once, we're seen as the bad guy and get blamed for destroying a state that has already been sold off to the billionaires. I will never understand how these media organizations or politicians come up with these headlines, but I'm frankly tired of being blamed for the incompetence and the lack of understanding that they show to people who are younger than them. They tell us we're the ones that are going to build the future, but don't give us any building blocks to do so. If Zoran does end up winning, I hope that shows them how serious people are about change, regardless in the shape that it comes in. But again, what do I know? Just a guy, unemployed, playing Call of Duty. If you agree or disagree with anything I said, please let me know down below in the comments. I do read the comments. Is Zoran a good candidate or is Andrew just a worse candidate? Let me know what you think. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to join the thread. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghost Thread, signing off.